Brookland News Live starts right now with breaking news.
And a good Tuesday to be with you. We do have a lot of breaking news. We're going to get to that coming up here in just a few moments. I'm Jackson Mitchell. It is Tuesday, May 12th, 2:02 here in Brooklyn, 12:02 on the West Coast, and 3:02 on the East. Again, it is good to be with you. We do want to get to some breaking news that has just come into us within the last few moments. We'll start first with the statement that we got in just moments before coming on the air from the Memphis Grizzlies, announcing that Brandon Clark has passed away at age 29. Quote, "We are heartbroken by the tragic loss of Brandon Clark. Brandon was an outstanding teammate and an even better person whose impact on the organization and the greater Memphis community will not be forgotten. We express our deepest condolences to the family and loved ones during this difficult time." So again, a statement coming into us moments ago from the Memphis Grizzlies announcing the death of the player there you see on the left hand side of your screen, Brandon Clark. So an outstanding teammate is how they explain him, and even better off the court. So again, may he rest in peace here. Lots of details on the exact cause and things of that nature not yet released. We'll track it and follow up if we've got to. Now to our next big breaking story, this one coming out of Washington. We are learning within the last little bit here that the FDA chair will step down after Trump reportedly signed off on a plan to fire him. Again, this news just coming into him. You see his headshot there on your screen. The Food and Drug Administration Commissioner Marty McCarty will be leaving the position. That is according to 3 people familiar with the situation. The FDA chief, has come under intense pressure and sustained it all from within the administration, including over his resistance to approving the sale of flavored e-cigarettes, an episode that promoted Trump to confront him directly, and from outside allies, including in the pharmaceutical industry and anti-abortion interest groups. And he oversaw constant turnover within the agency's senior ranks. So again, we're just getting in that more breaking news here that the Food and Drug Administrator Commissioner Marty McCarty, who you see there on your screen, is likely to step down. So a busy news day. Those 2 stories just coming into us, just kind of show you how busy this show is going to be. Okay, we did also get some more breaking news in this morning. We're learning that inflation has grown 3.8% in April. This is a brand new inflation report showing prices are rising faster than expected again across the United States. This is the highest since 2023. New numbers released this morning by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics show inflation rose 3.8% over the past year in April, the highest level again since 2023. So it's been all the way from the Biden administration, the COVID era, that we saw these prices go so high. A big reason for the spike, energy prices. Gasoline prices rose more than 28% compared to a year ago, while overall energy costs are also up nearly 18%. Economists say the war between Iran and Israel and the United States, has disrupted global oil markets, which we are seeing direct impacts here in Arkansas and across the nation, pushing prices higher for everything from gas to airline tickets. Grocery prices had also continued to climb. Food prices rose 0.5% last month, with big increases in fruits, vegetables, dairy products, and drinks. Rent, airfares, clothing, and household groceries also saw price increases. The report is also raising new questions about interest rates. Many investors had hoped the Federal Reserve would cut rates and could cut rates a little later in this year, but after today's report, some analysts believe the Fed may keep rates higher for longer to try to slow inflation down. Of course, we know interest rates kind of goes against inflation, and they both balance each other. So higher interest rates, lower inflation, lower interest rates, higher inflation, essentially. Consumer confidence has also been following. A new University of Michigan survey shows Americans are growing more worried about both inflation and the overall economy, with consumer sentiment dropping to a record low this month. So a big story. The economy, it always will be, and it's going to be something that we will follow right here on Brookland News Live. And we, of course, are learning new details about the war in Iran, something we just mentioned, and why a lot of this inflation is now up 3.8%. We're learning new details as a ceasefire and the conflict really between the United States, Iran, and Israel is continuing because it has been a very active week when we talk about this front. I want to bring you all the way back to the last time we joined you, which was last Monday. The war escalated once again. If you remember last time we were with you, there had been a ceasefire in place and there had been nobody was striking on each other. Well, again, on Monday night, it all escalated. New strikes at targets in the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has now accused the United States of breaking what they call a fragile ceasefire after American forces struck Iranian targets. This was a direct response to attacks on U.S. warships in the region. Here is President Trump on all of that. This is last week at the White House.
We have, you probably heard, we took our 3 destroyers and we rammed them through some pretty big stuff today, and we knocked the hell out of them. The destroyers weren't hurt in any way. The people weren't hurt, but they were firing at us, and we were firing back at them. And our firepower was a hell of a lot stronger than theirs, and they knocked the hell out of them. They took down a lot of small boats. You know, we call them small boats or fast boats. They're both small and they're fast, with some weaponry on the front. You know, this is what, so this is now replacing the Navy. They had a Navy 159 boats, they have none. Okay, they're all at the bottom of the sea, so they replace that with what they call the fast boat. It's a fast boat, big deal, it's fast, it's got a machine gunner in front. They've been knocked down, they knocked out quite a few of them today. Yesterday they knocked out 8. They average 8 a day. This is some group of people we're dealing with. So, you know, it's very simple. Somebody said, what's your plan? I said, the plan is very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. It cannot have a nuclear bomb, and it's not going to have. And they're really at the end of the line. Really are at the end of the line. Now, unless you guys feel differently. Now, these guys, I think, will say that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Would you say? We wouldn't feel very good if they did, because this, what you're doing and all the work that you do and that we do, it wouldn't look too very good after a while with these characters. We're not going to give them the right to have a nuclear weapon. There's zero chance. And they know that, and they've agreed to that. Let's see if they are willing to sign.
Yeah, President Trump there talking about things over at the White House last week, where things faced after the strike by Iran on U.S. Navy ships. Tehran is now warning it will give what it calls a, quote, crushing response, end quote, to any further military action. President Trump, on his end, says the U.S. will continue strikes if Iran threatens American forces or moves any closer to developing a nuclear weapon. Want to show you here now we have Pete Hegseth also talking about what he says is a ceasefire that is still in place, because even while the military action is happening, peace talks were ongoing behind the scenes all week, but both sides remain very apart. We'll get to the Pete Hegseth clip coming up here in just a moment. The U.S. proposed a deal that would require Iran to stop uranium enrichment for several years, dismantle major nuclear facilities, and scale back its missile program. Iran rejected key parts of that plan. What their demands had in it? Well, an end to sanctions, the removal of the U.S. naval blockade on the strait, and compensation for war damages. President Trump fired back, calling Iran's offer, quote, totally unacceptable. Here is, I believe we might have it here. It is a screenshot of the Truth Social that President Trump left after all that, and I'm not seeing it, therefore we do not have it. But again, he said Iran was making, quote, unreasonable demands and called it, quote, totally unacceptable. Here's Pete Hegseth now after all of this saying that the ceasefire is still in place despite the actions by the U.S. Take a listen to this.
Started out nicely, but you ended exactly where we knew you would end.
On the first day of this conflict, President Trump addressed the Iranian people directly and said, when we're finished, take over your government. It'll be yours to take. And then on the seventh day of the conflict, in a Truth Social post, the president said, quote, there will be no deal with Iran except, all caps, exclamation mark, unconditional surrender. What happens to that pledge to the Iranians? And when did the president decide to capitulate on his demand for unconditional surrender?
Well, James, I wouldn't, you started out nicely, but you ended exactly where we knew you would end. The president hasn't capitulated on anything. He holds the cards, we maintain the upper hand, and Project Freedom only strengthens that hand. And so he will ensure that whatever deal is made or whatever end state is reached creates ensuring that Iran never has a nuclear weapon, which is number one, and he's been focused on that, and the deal and discussions are centered on that. And what the Iranian people take advantage of after the fact is up to them, and he's been very clear about that. And maybe you do it now, maybe it happens later, but ultimately he's also been clear, we're not going to entangle this into some nation-building project. Our objectives are clear. They've been pursued from day one. Hopefully the Iranian people take advantage of that.
There you go. You've got Pete Hegseth saying a ceasefire remains in place, though the Trump administration saying it remains fragile as of right now. Tensions remain extremely high. Of course, oil prices also continue to rise because, again, as we've noted, this entire war, shipping through the Strait of Hormuz is still disrupted. Countries across the Middle East are on alert for more missile or drone attacks at any point in time. Trump now saying the United States, quote, will not allow Iran to reach enriched uranium. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the war, quote, is not over, and Iran is maintaining it will not fully give up its nuclear program unless sanctions are lifted and what it calls foreign pressure ends. There was also one more thing on this. The president now calling out Project Freedom. That was the operation to help free vessels stuck in the Strait of Hormuz. It has now been shelved following the new strikes and the latest developments. Now, as we get you to gas prices here is the Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, on where things stand. We'll play that for you here in just a moment. Gas prices across the nation, $4.50 today. They were $4.52 yesterday, down 2 cents, but they have been continuing to rise. Remember, we were just getting that about to under that $4 range just a few weeks ago. Now we're back up at $4.50. $4, the average state average for the natural state, and in Jonesboro, not too far behind the state average at $3.94. Energy Secretary Chris Wright on when prices could go down.
Big issue for Americans, gas prices, of course. You just heard me discuss how high they went this week. Here's what you said in this program in March about gas prices. Take a look. Are you confident that gas will be back under $3 a gallon by the busy summer travel season, Mr. Secretary?
There's a very good chance that'll be true. There's no guarantees in war. The time frame's still not entirely clear, but I think that's certainly a goal of the administration and very possible.
Do you think it's still very possible that gas prices will dip below $3 a gallon in time for summer, which is about 6 weeks?
I can't make any predictions about, oil prices or gasoline prices. The military part of the conflict took about what we expected. I think the president was guiding 4 to 6 weeks, took 5.5 weeks. After the main military operations have ceased, now we're in a negotiating period. We're using economic leverage against Iran, and this regime is trying to cling on to their nuclear program. So obviously this part of the conflict has gone a little longer.
Yeah, so when gas prices could go down, we don't quite know that yet. He says he can't predict the fuel market. A live look at the White House looks like that camera may be having some issues there. Gas prices not below $3 yet, as he said it was likely that maybe it could go below that, back in below $3 after the war began by the summertime. He talked a little bit about the timeline when he answered that question, saying it's taken now 5.5 weeks. This has been a multiple war month. multiple-month war by now, even though it was said to be a quick operation at first by the president. And now to our next top story here. Cruise ship passengers disembarking over the weekend after a coronavirus outbreak. A developing health story here, as health officials around the world are keeping a close eye on this story. So take a listen here. A rare coronavirus outbreak has been linked to the cruise ship in the Honduras Dutch-flagged vessel that left out of Argentina back at the beginning of April, carrying nearly 150 passengers and crew from 23 different countries. Now, multiple people on board all of a sudden became very sick with the severe respiratory illness. Symptoms that included high fever, gastrointestinal problems, and rapid progression to pneumonia and acute respiratory distress. Now we're learning that was the coronavirus. So far, 3 people have died. 2 of those deaths have been confirmed to be caused by the virus, and a third is still under investigation. Now, as of today, there are now 11 total reported cases, 9 confirmed and 2 probable, with patients currently hospitalized in Spain, South Africa, the Netherlands, Germany, Switzerland, France, and St. Helena. Now, the World Health Organization says the strain involved in all of this is the Andes coronavirus, and that is significant because this is the only known strand here of coronavirus that can spread between people through close, prolonged contact. So again, these people were together from the beginning of April 1st to be specific, until now, until just about this weekend on Sunday when they disembarked, or yesterday when they disembarked, excuse me. So again, this coronavirus can actually spread between people through close, prolonged contact. Now, most strains spread through direct exposure to infected rodents. The World Health Organization also notes that the 6 to 8 weeks in incubation, period means more cases could still emerge in the coming weeks as passengers are monitored. As for the ship itself, after being turned away from Cape Verde because local facilities couldn't handle the medical emergency, the Honduras finally docked at Spain's Canary Islands on Sunday. All passengers were evacuated and repatriated, home to their home countries on charter flights by Monday. Spain coordinated that operation with 22 countries and the World Health Organization. Of course, it could be without controversy. The Canary Islands regional president opposed the ship docking there, and port workers and others held protest over safety concerns about the ship docking there. The WHO Director General, Dr. Tedros, addressed that today, saying, quote, almost 150 people from 23 countries were on this ship for weeks in what must have been a very frightening situation. Even some of the passengers were facing mental breakdown, unquote. Now, he pushed back against calls to keep passengers confined on the ship for the full quarantine period, calling that, quote, inhumane and unnecessary. Now, health experts warn that this is not another COVID-19 situation and that the risk to the public is still considered low. The World Health Organization chief said today there is, quote, no sign that we are seeing the start of a larger outbreak. Now, we've got a few of those people in the States where people are currently being monitored here in the United States. That includes monitoring for possible exposure in Georgia, California, Arizona, Texas, Virginia, and Nebraska. The CDC again says the risk to the general public remains very low. Alrighty, still to come right here on Brookland News Live. We've got a few more headlines to get to for you. Trump departing for Beijing. Here you go. You can see the president there are soon to step out at Joint Base Andrews just moments ago. We're going to bring you everything you need to know on that trip, what it means for Americans, plus 2 major updates on 2 criminal cases. We're going to bring you that coming up here in just a few moments. You are watching Brookland News Live on this Tuesday. We're back in a moment. And welcome back here into Brooklyn News Live. A live look at the White House there on the right side of your screen is just moments ago from Joint Base Andrews. President Trump joined or stepped on to the steps to get into Air Force One there at JBA to head to Beijing as the first meeting in multiple years is set to happen between the president and Chinese President Xi Jinping. This is said to be a pretty big deal here. The two leaders are expected to meet in Beijing on Thursday and Friday for a 2-day summit. The president bringing a lot of people behind him there as you see them all gathering to get on to Air Force One. The two leaders are expected to meet in Beijing for about 2 days. That summit had been delayed earlier in the year because of the escalating situation in Iran. This will be Trump's first trip to China in roughly 8 years. And both sides are trying to lower tensions while also making clear they will not back down on the issues that matter most. So what's on the table here? What's going to be discussed? Likely, Trump says he wants to discuss trade deals, China's relationship with Iran and Russia, and new rules around artificial intelligence and national security. Also a big thing, likely going to be oil. China being one of the biggest Iranian oil buyers. They buy lots of oil from the Strait of Hormuz specifically. Now, nobody is expecting some massive, huge breakthrough from this meeting, but the fact that they are sitting down face to face again is significant. Relations between the U.S. and China have been very tense over the past year, of course, since the war in Iran had begun, and this summit could impact everything from the global economy and oil prices to technology to the possibility of future conflicts down the road. The president has also said to bring Tim Cook, who is stepping down as the Apple CEO, but he remains as the Apple CEO right now. Also, he's going to bring Elon Musk. So big CEOs, lots of business to be handled likely here in this meeting. We're going to be covering the summit throughout the next 3 days or so, and we'll bring you updates on what we know as the president has now departed from Washington, D.C., Joint Base Andrews, and is now headed to Beijing. Also, to another breaking story that we are following right now, and that is a judge allowing cameras in the courtroom for the Charlie Kirk assassination case. There had been a slight delay before the trial for some pre-trial hearings, and a ruling has just come out in that case. A Utah judge has decided that cameras will be allowed inside the courtroom. Robinson's attorney said argued that live broadcasts could bias potential jurors. Now, but Judge Tony Graff rejected that argument, citing the public's right to access court proceedings. Media organizations, prosecutors, and Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk, all supported having cameras in the courtroom for transparency. The judge has taken some steps to protect the defendant's rights, including relocating cameras and tightening the rules around coverage. The preliminary hearing, now set for July 6th through the 10th, prosecutors are seeking the death penalty. Now DNA evidence linking Robinson to the crime had already been found, though his attorneys are requesting more details on that piece of evidence. The case has reignited the broader debate over cameras in high-profile court cases, so for sure going to be a story that we are going to follow, and we know we've already been following parts of it. We brought you live coverage of some of those court proceedings before, I believe even on Brooklyn News Live. The White House Correspondents' Center, another big case that we've been watching. A major legal story here to bring you. The suspect in the shooting at the White House Correspondents' Center, well, he's entered a not guilty plea. 31-year-old Cole Allen appeared in federal court in shackles, represented by a public defender. He's facing 4 federal charges for allegedly attempting to assassinate President Trump at that April 25th dinner. Gunshots caused chaos at the event. Among those present were the acting Attorney General Todd Blanche and Jeanine Pirro. Now, prosecutors are labeling this attack as political violence. Allen had reportedly written a manifesto indicating that he was targeting high-ranking officials. He had traveled to Washington from the Southern California area carrying firearms and ammunition and had reserved a hotel room for 3 nights. A Secret Service officer was shot, but was protected by his vest. No one was seriously hurt. Allen faces charges again, including assassination, attempted assassination, and firearms violations, and he remains detained pending trial. You see him there in that video in the hotel gym at the Washington Hilton. Now, there's also another legal fight brewing inside this case. Allen's attorneys filed a motion to disqualify Todd Blanche engineer Janine Pirro, who serves as the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, D.C. Well, they're trying to disqualify them. At least the defense is here saying they are victims and cannot also be involved in this case against him. Judge Trevor McFadden questioned whether that move was even legally permitted. A public defender also criticized Pirro's involvement given her close ties to President Trump. Now, the government must respond to that motion by May 22nd, so just about 10 days from now. It's going to be a story to watch here. Alrighty, we're going to sneak in another quick break. When we come back, we've got a look at your forecast. We'll get you to that live shot right now at that R. camera live in Brooklyn. Plus, an indictment released related to the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse back just now, almost 2 years ago in Baltimore. We're going to bring you the latest on that and more coming up on this Tuesday edition of Brooklyn News Live. Stick with us. Welcome back live here into Brooklyn News Live. I'm Jack the Mitchell, still with you here as we bring you your top headlines of the day. Want to get to Your forecast, though, a big story is it is going to be heating up once again. As you see there, a live look in Brooklyn right now. Traffic, I don't know, it looks pretty busy, to be honest, actually, for Tuesday here at 2:34. School traffic just about to pick up as we approach the top of the hour, though. It is a warm day outside, a comfortable day if you gotta get out, run some errands, not be outside for too long. Maybe some yard work. Make sure applying sunscreen, things like that. If you do suffer from sunburns. As we go into tonight, the low is going to be about 60 degrees, so comfortable all as we go into the evening. Things are going to continue to heat up here as we go into Wednesday, a high of 83, a low of 56. Sunny skies continue, but the cloudy skies pick back up as we go into Thursday, a high of 79 and a low of 62. And as we go into the weekend, we could see highs up in the 90s. So getting the inkling that summer is approaching, well, it is. So be ready for that Arkansas weather this summer. Who knows what it is going to bring us, but some nice sunny skies ahead. Hopefully no rain's gonna pop up in the forecast. Doesn't look like it right now. We're gonna continue watching it though, but sunny and clear skies right now live there in Brooklyn as we continue to bring you your forecast. Alrighty, want to get you up to date on some of the other stories making headlines, and that is this one right here. It's pretty interesting, and you might have remembered we covered this about 2 years ago. We were doing live coverage day by day of the Baltimore Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse. I want to actually show you guys some video of that. This is from Maryland Public TV. It shows you the damage that was done after that ship wrecked into the bridge. So before we go here, federal prosecutors now announcing charges in connections with the 2024 collapse of Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge. That disaster, there's a news reporter reporting on it, saying it is amazing to see what had occurred there. The indictment that was released names 2 ship operating companies, Synergy Marine, PTE Ltd, and Synergy Marine Time, PTE Ltd, both based in Singapore and India, as well as a 47-year-old Indian national name that I cannot pronounce, but an Indian national there, who served as technical superintendent for the Dali container ship. That ship, named the Dali, crashed into the bridge on March 26th back in 2024, so over 2 years ago now. 6 construction workers were killed. They'd been working on that bridge, trying to fill potholes on the bridge at the time of the collapse. So Acting Attorney General Tom Blanche called the collapse, quote, a preventable tragedy of enormous consequence. The companies and Nair faced charges including conspiracy, willfully failing to notify the U.S. Coast Guard of a known hazardous condition, obstruction, and making false statements. An FBI investigation have been focusing on the ship's operations and specifically on whether the crew knew about critical system problems before the Dali ever left the port. So something that a lot of people knew, clearly something had went wrong here. Now you are seeing kind of the results. So a big story that we had been following throughout the last 2 years. What was the exact result of that crash? What was it? And now we are learning, according, at least allegedly, of course, we have to say that, to this indictment, that it was a kind of a failure of notifying the Coast Guard, that yet there were some critical issues with the Dali, with the ship that these companies were using to travel cargo through the body of water that you see on your screen, through under the Francis Scott Key Bridge, and it caused we know that it caused some type of power outage that forced this boat kind of in the wrong direction, at least what the preliminary investigation that I remember had said, and that is what led to the video that you're seeing of the entire Francis Scott Key Bridge that wasn't the actual bridge portion collapsing to the water. So, of course, now ships have been traveling through there. It happened in the overnight hours. I remember, I believe I was awake, and then we had gotten some word about the crash, and then that is when I had kind of started covering it, and then the networks were coming on because this was a critical bridge to the Baltimore, Maryland area. And if you live in that area, you might travel it daily. Of course, there's no bridge there now; it's kind of just empty. But that investigation now leading to an indictment. We'll continue following this as we get more information. Another quick break. When we come back, our final story of the California mayor resigning after federal charges. What was within those charges, and where was this at? We're gonna bring you there coming up here in just a few moments. You're watching Brooklyn is Live on a Tuesday. Well, listen to this. The mayor of Arcadia, California, Eileen Wang, has resigned after federal prosecutors accused her of secretly acting on behalf of the Chinese government. Authorities say Wang agreed to plead guilty to acting as an illegal foreign agent after investigators claim she helped spread pro-China propaganda inside the United States. Prosecutors say Wang and her former fiancé operated a Chinese language news website called U.S. News Center, which they claimed was used to push content provided by Chinese officials, including articles defending the Chinese government and denying human rights abuses. Federal officials say she communicated with people tied to Chinese intelligence operations using encrypted messaging apps. The Justice Department is also now saying the activity took place between 2020 and 2022, before Wang took office on the city council. Still, FBI officials called the case a warning about foreign governments trying to influence American politics all the way down to the local level. Now, Wang could face up to 10 years in prison. The city of Arcadia says there is no evidence resources were used or compromised. So a big story to watch out of California here. We'll take a look at this case, and if there's any big breakthroughs there, we're going to bring those to you. A look at her as she was on the council out of the city of Arcadia, California. Swearing in, actually, is what she was doing in that video that you just saw there. Alrighty, that is going to wrap up our coverage for this Tuesday. I hate that I missed yesterday. We had some technical difficulties. We were going to actually have a whole broadcast plan. We had a few issues. We're here today, though. That's what matters. We're going to be back here tomorrow with more of the news that matters. All the news you need and more. We're continuing that, of course, right here on Brooklyn News Live. So thank you so much for joining us. 2 o'clock tomorrow. Join us live for another edition of Brooklyn News Live. Again, we're going to, during the summer, I can tell you for sure, our coverage is going to pick up, and we are going to try our best to do every weekday 2 p.m. I know it's kind of hard when I have a busy schedule and I have to work around all of that in order to do the show, and some things I can't work around. So join us weekdays 2 p.m. for Brooklyn News Live. Time now 2:44. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your day. Stay safe out there. We're back tomorrow at 2 p.m. with what you need to know.